You're listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Sports Radio Detroit is proud to present, in association with Detroit Sports Media, the Whip and Neigh podcast on sportsradiodetroit.com. With your show host, Pete Spivak of Detroit's 1130 WDFM The Fan and iHeartMedia Detroit.
They're coming to the wire. He's just awesome. Justify has won the Kentucky Derby.
Ryan Dickey of Firehouse Racing Stables.
It is Justify in front. Good Magic on the outside. Ken Fold. Ramazzo. Justify. He's unstoppable. He won the Preakness.
And Dana Garuder of Baseball Writers Association of America, who's also a professional racing handicapper.
And here it is. The 37-year wait is over. American Pharoah is finally the one. American Pharoah has won the Triple Crown.
And now it's time for the Whip and Neigh podcast. Here are your show hosts, Pete Spivak, Ryan Dickey, and Dana Garuder. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. Come on, boys, sing with me. It is the Whip and Neigh podcast here on Sports Radio, Detroit.com, SRD. I am one of the show hosts, Pete Spivak, and with me, as always, are my usual cohorts, Ryan Dickey and Dana Garuder. Gentlemen, how are ya?
Very good. Hey, you've got some golden pipes there, Spivak.
Just thought I'd have a little fun with one of the greatest songs ever in the entire world by Mr. Blue Eyes. I actually used to be in a rock and roll band back in the days. So there you go. That's what it sounds like after 8 hours of radio.
I can picture you being in a band like Striper.
It was called, we had two bands. One was called Afterburn, and then the other one, check out this name, Jukebox Jesus.
Right. Wow.
Good name for a horse. So anyway, welcome in, gentlemen, again to the Belmont Stakes show of the Whip and Neigh podcast here on Sports Radio Detroit.com, SRD. What Ryan Dickey and Dana Garuder and myself usually do is break down the road to the Kentucky Derby, and that road takes place from September to April with the prep race schedule, which determines the field of 20 for the Kentucky Derby. And then when the Kentucky Derby ends, we move on to the Preakness, and then when that's done, we move up to what's coming up on Saturday, and that is the Belmont Stakes from the beautiful Belmont Park in Elmont, New York. So without further ado, I think we're going to jump right into it. I guess before we do, does anybody have anything you want to say regarding the first two races? Meaning the Derby or the Preakness.
It doesn't seem like it's been a long while. Or
no, it has. I know that we said that it has been a long while. I just was saying, do you guys have anything that you want to make mention at all or anything before we go into the Belmont?
Well, I was trying to remember about the Preakness, but my memory's foggy.
Yeah, Larry Coleman saw through the fog.
Yeah, if you're gonna sing New York, New York, at least I can throw that out there.
Very good. Well, all right, guys, then let's get right into it. Before we do that, I just want to remind folks to log on to sportsradiodetroit.com and check out the latest episodes of the Out of Bounds podcast with Dave, Dan, and Jeff as the boys break down the latest sports topics around the country as well as locally here in Detroit. So, again, log on to sportsradiodetroit.com, SRD, and check out the Out of Bounds podcast with Dave, Dan, and Jeff, and Roger and the boys. It's all fun news there. So, back here to the Whip and Neigh podcast, we are going to move on to the Grade 1, 1.5 miles, $1.5 million 150th run for the White Carnations. The Belmont Stakes presented by the New York Racing Association from Belmont Park in New York, New York. Race, 11 on your card. A field of 10 horses set for post time around 6:46 Eastern Time. And the weather, which has been very interesting for the first two legs of the Triple Crown. The weather for Saturday, mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of thunderstorms, a high around 78. And with those details, we're going to send it over to my friend, the great Danny Garuder, with his breakdown.
Well, it would be nice if we had a fast track for a change. And I do think the weather forecast has been improving there. I think at one point it was 60% chance of rain. So hopefully we'll finally get a fast track for one of these Triple Crown races. Certainly Justify, obviously, is the best horse in the race. But will he win this particular race is a different story. He does have a huge pace advantage. He drew the rail, so he almost has to go to the front here. And the two horses with the most speed, along with Justify, just happen to be owned by some of the same people that own Justify, so you would think they're not going to really battle him head-to-head, at least not early on. That would be Restoring Hope and Noble Indy. So it's always possible maybe there's another horse in that race, Bravazzo or Tenfold, maybe show a little bit more speed and give him a little bit more early pressure. But really, Justify has a pace advantage here. But even with that, I still recall before American Pharoah, we saw 13 horses try to win the Triple Crown and they couldn't do it. American Pharoah finally did it, but I take the skeptical view. I think we're going to see an upset here. And I would channel my inner Neil Diamond, channel my inner UB40, and go with Vino Rosso, which is a red wine. Or that's the translation, red wine. Noble Indy is trained by Todd Pletcher, as is Vino Rosso. Vino Rosso won the Wood Memorial, then had a very wide trip in the Derby. But as we've seen with Todd Pletcher before, he's a New York-based trainer. He often has also rans in the Derby who do very well in the Belmont Stakes. 8 of the last 12 Belmont Stakes, Todd Pletcher has either won the race or had the second-place finisher. This is his race. This is the race that he excels at. And I think he's going to have Vino Rosso primed for a big race. He doesn't have to be way back. He could be kind of in the middle of the pack and make his one run. One of the interesting things about Vino Rosso is that John Velasquez has had very high hopes for this horse. He stayed with this horse. He rode him in the Derby, even though he had he could have ridden Audible, and he chose Vino Rosso, which turned out to be a bad move by him. But he's still here. He believes in his horse. So I'm going to believe with him and go with Vino Rosso. And with my second choice, I'm going to go with the second choice on the wagering line, which is Hofburg, trained by Bill Mott, who got blocked in the Derby in a couple of points, ran out well towards the end of the race, really didn't have much chance to finish in the money. But I think this horse is going to improve on Saturday. Very lightly raced, only his 5th lifetime start, and Bill Mott is a Hall of Fame trainer who also happens to be based in New York and also happens to have a Belmont Stakes to his credit in Drosselmeyer 8 years ago. So I'm going with the 2 New York-based trainers. I'm going with Todd Pletcher, and I'm going with Bill Mott, Vino Rosso, and Hofburg Exacta. And with that, I will turn it over to Ryan Dickey.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm going to get to my pick in a roundabout way. I'm going to go through the field and tell you the horses who are not going to win the Belmont Stakes. Number 2, Free Drop Billy. I think he can hit the board. I don't think he can win the race. Number 2, Bravazzo. Bravazzo ran a very good race in the Preakness. However, I don't think coming back 3 weeks later and being able to top Justify at 1.5 miles is in his wheelhouse, so I don't think Bravazzo can win. I don't think Restoring Hope, the other Baffert horse in the race, who I think will get out front, I think he'll get out front with Justify. I think the number 1 and the number 5 will be your pace setters. I don't think Restoring Hope has any hope of winning. The horse that I think has the least chance of winning and who will probably come in dead last is Gronkowski. I think Gronkowski does not fit here. He's going to be a much better grass horse. I have no idea why he's running, and he's going to get bet because of his name. Noble Indy, the other Todd Pletcher horse in the race, I don't think he will win. I think he could be not a rabbit per se, but I think he'll be a pace setter for Vino Rosso. And then Blended Citizen, I'm really on the fence with this horse right here. I'm not 100% sure that Blended Citizen isn't going to be the sneaky pick to win. But, as Dana said, Vino Rosso. I'm going with Vino Rosso to win. One of the better formulas for winning the Belmont Stakes is run the Derby, skip the Preakness, go to New York and win. It also doesn't hurt that Curlin is your sire. I like Todd Pletcher in New York. I think Vino Rosso is going to upset Justify. I think Justify will hit the board. However, if he doesn't come in second, a horse that I'd like to hit the board, like I said earlier, was Free Drop Billy, the Dale Romans horse. Dale said he wasn't going to run Free Drop Billy in the Belmont, but he said that the way he was training, he was kind of asking to run in it. So he's putting Free Drop Billy. He's going to be completely ignored at the windows. So I think we're going to get a huge exacta or trifecta if we can get Free Drop Billy on there. But the third horse I want to put on there is Blended Citizen. I think Blended Citizen fits as far as on the sheets. The speed ratings aren't exactly the best, but he's improving, and Doug O'Neill has been known to win some big races. So I'm going to go with Vino Rosso on top with Free Drop Billy and Justify underneath, and Blended Citizen to hit the board either on the trifecta or maybe even be in the superfecta. And with that, we'll go back to the old Blue Eyes impersonator, Pete.
Well, I appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Dana. It seems to me that I thought that I was coming into this podcast with the pick of all picks, but let's make it 3 for 3. Yes, the 8-horse Vino Rosso is going to be my pick to win the 150th running of the Belmont Stakes, coming off an absolute clunker in the Kentucky Derby, where John Velasquez did not fire him early enough. He also had some traffic problems in that race as well. But now we're down to 10 horses in the 10-horse field at the Belmont. I think it sets up perfectly for a absolute hard-nosed closer such as Vino Rosso. Now, I shouldn't really say hard-nosed closer. Vino Rosso, he just takes his time. He's a steady closer. He'll just go to the back. I think he is going to go to the back. He should be like 9th or 10th. From off the start. I think he's just going to trail back there and slowly but surely make his way towards the front, especially as they start down the stretch. I think it's 1-4-8 cold. I really do. I think it's the 8-4-1 trifecta box in any sort of order that you want. I do think Justify will be in the top 3. I don't necessarily think he's going to win. But that 4-horse Hofburg, we've been talking about Hofburg for pretty much, I'd say basically since mid-March, since he started in the Florida Derby Grade 1, and then obviously went off to the Kentucky Derby where he finished 7th, trying to make again, a very steady close from the back, but again, running into traffic problems. But Hofburg, out of all the closers in the Kentucky Derby, did the best, only losing by 6 3/4 lengths. So I really like to see the one Justify win the Triple Crown. I really do want to see him win it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think he'll be beaten by the 8 Red Wine, a.k.a. Vino Rosso. So I think it's Vino Rosso with Hofburg and Justify, the 1-4-8 combination. I think that Free Drop Billy is out. I think that Bravazzo is definitely out. Bravazzo had his run. He's a short track horse, meaning like just, shorter than 1.25 miles. He can't seem to cut it from 1.25 miles. So 1 3/16 at the Preakness was perfect for Bravazzo. He'll get too tired in the Belmont. So Gronkowski, forget about him. But like you said, Ryan, he will be bet because of his name. And also Rob Gronkowski also has a stake in that horse as well. He is a minority owner of that horse. And also to let you guys know, there is a new Triple Crown trophy. It's the old Triple Crown trophy now with 3 legs attached to it. So it's actually like on a stand, but it's still kind of that, upside down isosceles triangle, sort of weird looking trophy, but again with 3 legs on it on a stand. But we'll see if Justify and the owners of the China Horse Club, by the way, Justify will be racing with the flag of China at his silks, the red flag with the yellow stars, the colors of the China Horse Club. So I say it's 1-4-8 as the trifecta, with Vino Rosso being your winner. Gentlemen, any more comments?
I don't have a comment about the Belmont, but I will say that in the Woody Stevens on Saturday, which is race 7, it's going to be a very contested race. I have a long shot that I like in that. That's the number 6, Still Having Fun. That horse is 15-1 on the morning line. Joel Rosario is the jockey. Tim Keefe is the trainer. There's going to be a lot of other horses being bet, like Engage and Kanthaka and World of Trouble, Strike Power. But I think the Still Having Fun, I think the race sets up perfectly for him. He's not going to be bet well at the windows. And if you want to get a big bucket full of money, bet Still Having Fun, the number 6 horse in the 7th race on Saturday at Belmont.
Geez, Dana, do you have any upsets like that?
You know what? I like Still Having Fun too.
What is this? Agree with everybody today's show? Everybody agrees with everybody
running
today.
on Saturday is Bolt D'Oro. He's running on the Met Mile against older horses, which I thought was an unusual spot for him. I think he's got a shot to win it, but I'm wondering why he ventured out of his 3-year-old. He could have stayed with 3-year-olds and ends up facing a bunch of older horses in the Met Mile, which is an unusual spot. I don't know exactly what that's all about. But the other thing, and this is about the Belmont, I've handicapped races for many years. I never really sat and said, well, there's common ownership in 3 or 4 horses, so how do you figure what's going to happen with the pace scenario? Because there's common ownership. It's kind of a weird scenario where you have the horses with the best speed, all 3 of the best horses in terms of early pace are owned. There's this common ownership there, so you don't know exactly what's going to unfold. I mean, I just think Justify, because he's on the rail, almost has to go to the lead, don't you?
I would think so. Him and Restoring Hope are going to be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it could be a tricky situation because the mile and a half. The turn is right there, so it's not like you can pull the horse back. If you're on the rail, you have to kind of go and get good position. And I mean, I guess the other horses could pass him once he establishes his position. But I just think he might just try to go wire to wire, just like American Pharaoh did 3 years ago.
Well, this is the wrong track to be battling for the lead around the first turn. That's for damn sure.
Right. So that's why I'm wondering what the jockeys of Restoring Hope and Noble India are actually going to do. That's because I don't, with the common ownership, I don't think they really want to go head to head with Justify. So it's going to be a tricky situation going around that first turn. That's all I can say.
Dana, any comments? Or I'm sorry, Ryan, any comments?
Yeah, it is strange to see that many common links. I think there's probably 1,000 people who have a stake in Justify. There's a lot of people that are owners, so they're going to be well represented. But when the gates open and it's time to run, these jockeys, they get paid on how well they do. They get paid on a percentage of the purse. But on the other hand, they have to worry about getting more mounts in the future. So they're going to do what they're told to do, but if it comes down close to being to have a chance to win the Belmont Stakes, and they're a horse that shouldn't be the winner, but he's got a shot, I guarantee you the jockey's going to go for the wire.
That's a good point, man. You're absolutely right. These are employees, and they're under, they have instructions from their trainer, and they follow those, and that's exactly what's going to happen. But, I mean, with a mile and a half, it definitely plays a lot of mind games. So, all right, boys, any final comments, anybody?
No. Well, I want to say one more time, let's get a fast track this time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very good. Ryan, anything?
No, I'm happy with getting a fast track. That'd be great.
All right, gentlemen. Well, very good. I want to remind everybody that, unfortunately, this is one of the last Whip and Neigh podcast for the season, as the Triple Crown season is over. I think Ryan, Dana, and I will have a discussion about what we want to do with the show going forward. But basically, this will wrap up the 2017-18 season of the shortened Whip and Neigh podcast, as my mother unfortunately passed away in September at the start of the season, so we were not able to start in September with the beginning of the prep race schedule, but we picked it up in February, and here we are with the final race. How time flies. Don't forget to tune in to other shows and podcasts here on sportsradiodetroit.com, including Mitten Sports Talk, Parsons and Slow, which actually that show has been gaining very, very good ratings. Please check out Parsons and Slow on sportsradiodetroit.com. Great pop culture show with sports mixed in. Fanarchy, The Set Piece, Pucking Around, Grave Discussions, The Laugh Track, Spinning the Wheels, Wings, Pistons, Lions, and Tigers SRD, along with SRD Ringside. And also don't forget to check back for more of the Whip and Neigh podcast. Gentlemen, thank you very much for all season long. I really appreciate everything you both did.
No worries, but I do have one more thing to say.
Yes, sir.
All three of us picked Vino Rosso to win. We've got no shot. Justify wins the Triple Crown.
Oh, boy, now you said it. Now you said it. And speaking of that, Ryan, where can people find you on social media?
They can find me all over the place. They can find me on Twitter at rdickey249. They can find me at Firehouse Racing Stables on Facebook and other places. Just Google me.
You got it, my friend. Ryan and Dano, how about you?
Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at dgaruder.
Thank you very much, my friends. Appreciate everything you did all year. And thank you very much to our listeners as well. A reminder that I am one of your show hosts, Pete Spivak, and you can find me doing sports updates on Detroit's 1130, WDFN The Fan. And you can also find me on Twitter at Son of USFL Dad. Now, remember what Stan Laurel says. You can lead a horse to water, but a pencil must be led. Good luck, hail, and farewell.
This has been an SRD production.